Well, good morning, gentlemen. It's great to be with you again by video. I have jury duty this morning, so while you're listening to this, I'm either on the way or at jury duty probably today. And anyway, sorry for that inconvenience. I was looking forward to being with you and thought that I wouldn't have to do this week, but I do. So it'll be next week when I see you. But this is a very significant day as it begins, as we think of Jesus and his resurrection, the crucifixion, all of that. This is a very significant day because it is the first day of the week as we think of the events of Jesus last week. And so I thought it would be good for us to begin this morning by just kind of taking a look at some of the events that week, just a few of the highlights, and getting an idea of exactly what Jesus did. On Sunday, Jesus had made his way to his friend's house in an area called Bethany. Bethany was just outside of Jerusalem, probably about 3 miles or so to where Jesus went. And he went to a home of a dear friend, and that's the home of Lazarus. Lazarus had just a month or so, not many weeks before, had been raised from the dead. And many people now were coming into Jerusalem because they wanted to see Lazarus. They had heard the story. The rumors of his resurrection were spreading rapidly. So somewhere in some number of weeks, we don't know exactly, it may have been as far out as 3 months, but in some number of weeks after Lazarus had been raised from the dead, Jesus makes his way into the Jerusalem area for the week of what we call Passion Week, and the week he would be crucified and then resurrected on Sunday morning. It's an interesting place that he goes, not only be with what Scripture seems to communicate as his dearest friend, and when we know we're going to go through tough times, we like to be with our dearest friends, but also at the home and in fellowship with a guy that he had himself raised from the dead after 4 days in the tomb, a day beyond which Jesus would know that he himself would be in the grave. And so on Monday morning, Jesus gets up and he leaves the home of Lazarus and he makes his way into Jerusalem. He will make this trip a number of times this week. And it is this, when he makes his way into the city, that he curses the fig tree because of its lack of producing fruit. You may remember the story, but the fig tree had all of the leaves that should have indicated fruit, but there was no fruit on that fig tree whatsoever. And so Jesus curses the fig tree on his way from Bethany into Jerusalem. This is all the occasion when he makes his way into Jerusalem, thinking about the events that are forthcoming and his love for Jerusalem. And this is the occasion where when he's entering the city, he looks over the city of Jerusalem and he breaks down and just weeps over Jerusalem. He will say something very similar to, we'll translate it, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often would I have gathered you under my wings under myself as a hen gathers her baby chicks under her own wings. And then he will make his way to the temple. Now you will remember that there was a previous occasion where Jesus has gone through and cleansed the temple and drove out money changers and such. That had already occurred once, but today it happens again on the second time. After he cleanses the temple and spends a little bit of time there, he will make his way back to Bethany with Lazarus, where he will again spend the night. Now the next morning is Tuesday morning. He leaves Bethany, and on their way out, that's where they find the fig tree has withered completely, and the disciples are amazed at how rapidly the fig tree has withered. It gives Jesus an occasion to teach on faith, and in that setting he will talk about the power of our words regarding the outcome of them. And I think it's an important lesson for us just to be reminded of, that our idle words can cause us problems. That's one of the reasons that we are cautioned in Scripture against idle words, just saying things that either out of sarcasm or other ways that are not good words. There's no good fruit. If you might think in terms of, if what I just said bears fruit, is it going to be good fruit? And so that's the idea of being very, very cautious in the words that we speak, because Jesus is saying there is power in our words. Just as he cursed the fig tree obeyed unto death. And so Jesus does some teaching about that, and it's good for us to remember that. It was especially important for his disciples to understand. This is a day also, there are a number of things that happened. It's a busy day in ministry, but this is an occasion where Judas will bargain with the Sanhedrin to betray Jesus. This last day of Jesus' ministry, and it was the last day, he'll lead some teaching at Bethany, which will make its way into the Scriptures. But while Jesus is spending his last day in ministry, Judas is making his arrangements with the Sanhedrin to betray Jesus. Wednesday's called the Silent Day. It's a day that Jesus spent in contemplation. He spent it with friends and with his disciples. And it's just a day that had no ministry. Nothing about Wednesday makes its way into the Scriptures except that it's a day that Jesus that spent to himself with those that were close to him. It would be the next day that things would become very, very busy as he makes his way to the last day. Now on Thursday, Peter and John are sent to make the final preparations for the Passover meal. And the evening is, the late afternoon and evening is really when the events begin around Jesus' life. At sunset, he eats the meal with the 12. That's the evening that he washes the disciples' feet. That's the evening that Judas will depart the group. That's the evening that, as John records, much of the body of Jesus' teaching will occur on that evening as he spends those final hours with his disciples. After he spends the evening with them in this room for the Lord's Supper, then they will make their way out to the Garden of Gethsemane. And there in Gethsemane, Jesus will be in prayer and he will say, Father, if it's possible to let this cup pass from me, but nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. And that's the occasion of prayer where Scripture records it. It was of such intensity that Jesus literally sweat drops of blood, thinking and bearing the emotional burden of what he was about to do. It is after that prayer that he will be turned over to the guard with the high priest, and that Judas will give Jesus the kiss of betrayal, and then that will begin the evening of trials that lead to Jesus' crucifixion. Jesus will be up throughout the night on that Thursday night with these trials, and then by Friday morning early, he will be carrying the cross, making his way to Golgotha. He will hang on the cross throughout much of the day, and then at the exact time in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock, when the Passover lamb was slain at the temple, at that time, Jesus took his last breath and he cried out, "It is finished." And so both he and the Passover lamb at the temple died at the same time. Guys, I trust you'll have a great week this week. Enjoy the things that God has for you, and may God bless you. Bye-bye.